Hey guys, thank you for joining us on another episode of the Think Cloud podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Jay, and I am here with
Casey.
And besides Miss Casey, we have two special guests with us today. We have Unica, who is a clinical social worker and a sex therapist in training. Woo! Yay! And we also have another guest who is Mr. Adoze, and he is an aspiring minister. So, Miss Casey, what have you been up to?
It was a busy week this week. Yesterday I voted.
Woo!
Yes.
Yay.
Got my
Are you with
vote
her?
on. I am.
Yay.
And I know that we usually save this for the end, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it now. For all the people who are not voting, they can have a seat.
I swear that's your thing.
It is. They can have a seat. And I also want to know, I really want our listeners to write in. If you're not voting and Donald Trump wins, please tell us, what is your plan? What do you plan to do in the event that he wins and you didn't vote? Because I want to know. Because I know that a lot of people are saying, well, I don't, agree with Hillary, she's evil, and we've already talked about the lesser of two evils and to make sure that we have the best of the situation that we can choose. And I just don't understand the rationale of just not voting, period. Because the vote was for taxes, the vote was for
Education.
sex workers, the voting was for education. Like, it was so many things on the ballot. So I just really genuinely, write us on Facebook, email us, what is your plan since you're not voting?
Hey, well, so what else is going on?
Aside from that, getting big, gaining weight,
7 months in, that's
being
normal.
hot. But that's about it. What about you?
Oh gosh, normally I have something like interesting to say about my week. I don't know. I've been kind of busy, but I can't think of. I talked about like my class ending, right?
Yep.
And turning in
I saw the
everything.
picture you posted.
I
You look
know,
great.
I'm gonna miss them. That was only half of my class. So, but I'm gonna miss them, but I'm sick of reading assignments and grading, so, and I don't know if I'm gonna teach next semester.
You said that. Like,
Every year.
and then you
I need
enjoy
a break because with trying to, build other stuff, I kind of need a break. I don't want to spend all my waking moment but I'm gonna miss them. So other than that,
Speaking of breaks, I'm taking a social media break.
are you? Okay, cool. Is there a reason?
I need to get some stuff done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm taking a break until the end of the month. I'm still gonna post for my practice.
Yes.
But outside of that, I'm not gonna be on.
Does that mean I need to take over the Think Cloud Instagram
yeah,
page?
that's right.
Yeah. All right, so I'll do that then. But so let's have our guests tell us a little bit about themselves. Miss Unica, you're up first.
Well, hi everyone, I am Unica. I, like you said before, I am a social worker. Got into sex therapy just because it's been a topic. Sex is just a fun topic in general to me. And so I just wanted to explore that on more like the clinical level and kind of getting to know like the philosophy behind sexuality and what that looks like, and then how to, introduce that and be with your partner and what does that look like. So just wanted to know a little bit more education about it so I can help other people who maybe are struggling with, having sexual difficulties in their relationships or, what have you, because it's a sensitive subject. So that's how I got into it. And so hopefully just from here it just takes off, and I'm gonna hopefully be certified in the next year. So I'm excited about that.
Yay!
That's
awesome.
Yeah, and I'm in supervision now. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
That's awesome.
Good.
All right, Mr. Adoze, what do you want the listeners to know about you?
Yeah, so like she said, I'm an aspiring minister. Currently, I'm actually working for Home Depot. Going to start doing that next week as a software developer. But in my free time, or actually all my time, I'm a minister. I minister the Word of God. I give people God's Spirit because we all need Jesus. Other than that, man, I'm easygoing, flexible guy who just loves the Lord and loves people.
And he's my little brother.
Yeah, that too.
Awesome. That's good. Great.
So So in case you guys don't know yet, this show is going to be about sex or lack of sex or waiting for sex. So all things involving sex. But before we jump into that, do you have anyone you're standing for? Any moments, any people, anything?
I do want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, Crystal. She's
Yay,
been
Crystal.
like posting on our Facebook like back to back and like tagging, and she listens like every week and she leaves comments. And she wrote one saying that she feels like she's our biggest fan and she really like loved the last episode for the Queen Movement, and it inspired her a lot. And so shout out to Crystal.
You know what's funny? My stand-up moment is not just for one person in general, but for everyone that supports us.
Yes.
This week we hit over 1,000 listeners.
Yay.
So, and it's crazy because that was our goal for the end of the year. When we first started doing the show, and Casey and I were sitting down talking about our goals, mapping out the things that we wanted to do for the show, we said, if we get 1,000 listeners, we made it. Like, that was our thing, and we hit 1,000 listeners this week, and we are truly excited about that. So for everyone that's ever listened, posted something on your social media, left us a 5-star review, anyone that's ever told their friends to listen, anyone that's sent us a comment, just anything, thank you, thank you, thank you. Not just that, but our partners who jump in at every minute. My husband that produces the show and is up at night trying to make it right when something went wrong in recording, and he's there just up when he could be sleeping, just trying to fix it. So, I mean, I tell him thank you all the time, but I really want to take this time out to just say thank you, thank you, thank you for everyone that supports us, and we will continue to do this. So what about you guys? Anything, anyone that you guys are just standing for that just make your week, your day, anything good?
Yeah, actually, I have to say I stand for my friends, like my people who are professional. They're just doing their thing and doing their career, like Casey and everybody else who's out there doing their thing and being business owners and young professionals. So I really stand for that because it really is truly inspiring, and it forces me to be like, okay, let me get it going, because I am a procrastinator.
Ooh,
So it forces me to be like, okay, I need to get on it. They're doing this, I need to be doing this too. So that's who I stand for.
Yeah. What about you, Doze?
Yes, I stand for my family. I mean, like just being back home, I used to live in DC for a little bit, and just getting the chance to be around my parents, my brothers, just seeing how my family are just go-getters. It really inspires me to be more and to do more and to just go the extra mile to make sure my family's straight. So shout out to the fam.
Yay! That is a good one. So let's get into the show. Do you want to tell them how the show was birthed, the idea, when you like text me and say, we need to do the show?
So, I would say about a month ago, I was watching Super Soul Sunday over on OWN, which I watch from time to time depending on who she has on the show. And she had Devon Franklin and Megan Good as a guest because they just came out with their book, The Wait. And I knew about the book, I kind of knew what it was about, but I didn't know like in depth. But I was really intrigued with the concept. Not only is it about waiting to have sex until you're married, but also how humans are used to instant gratification and being able to train themselves to be patient and allow what you want to come in due time, and how sex can kind of reinforce that of waiting and putting it off. And Megan spoke from her perspective as someone, she didn't say that, she didn't label herself as being promiscuous, but she stated that she had several relationships that were based off of sex from the jump. And they were going nowhere. And she was getting roles where she was cast as a sex symbol. And that wasn't what she wanted to do. And so she decided to become celibate to work on herself. And then she met the man who ended up being her husband, Devin. And they decided to wait to have sex until marriage. And she felt as if waiting allowed them to see that they actually had something in common versus continuing a relationship that was toxic or not worthy because it was based off of sex. And she felt as if it also helped with her career because she then started to get roles in Deception and Minority Report, and broke records or whatnot as being cast, I think, as the second Black woman on primetime television show. So they were just trying to relate and saying that this isn't meant to chastise people or say this is what you have to do, but this is what their experience was. So I found it to be very interesting. So I text Jay and I said we should do a show about it because I could see so many different perspectives about it, even my own perspective and what I think about it. And that's how the show has been born.
Yes. So I think the interesting thing about it for me, when you called me, and I know about the book, you know, I adore them as a couple. I think they're beautiful. I like their message. But when you told me to watch that Soul Sunday and I tuned into it, what I really got from it was this wasn't something for publicity. It wasn't kind of like a preachy type thing, but it was think about this from all aspects, not just the fact of, like you said, it wasn't just so much just the sex, but we live in kind of a microwave society where we want it and we want it right now, and waiting on anything just seems to be crazy for most of us. It just seems something out of the ordinary because, I mean, with technology, everything is just right at our fingertips. Well, for the most part, everything is right at our fingertips. So for them to say, regardless if we're these two beautiful people, which they both are, because of our commitment to God and our commitment to each other, and because we want it to work, we're going to abstain from it. And I was talking to someone about it saying, oh, I think that's, you know, really good. What do you think? And they were like, well, what if he's bad in bed? Or what if, because they're like, oh, well, we know Megan isn't bad in bed. And I was like, how do you know? You ever slept with Megan Good? You know, so, but it was so, and then I started thinking, you know, that is a thing to think about. So what do you guys think about that, first of all, is if for people that are deciding to wait, what if when you do have sex, it's a disappointment? Because I have my own opinion on it, but I'm going to let you guys go in.
Yeah, so the thing with that is if you find out later on in your relationship you're dating this person, depending on how long you guys have been together, because to Megan Good's point, it does offer you an opportunity to be able to get to know somebody and to be able to kind of get to know them on a personal level. Do you guys like spending time together? What do you guys like doing? So once you get to the sex part, once the sex is introduced, and if it is bad, at that point I feel like you've come at least far enough in your relationship that you can communicate with each other and you guys can have a conversation about, hey, what's not working? I feel this way, I feel that way. This is not working for me, can you do this instead of this? You know, I feel like at that point you should be more comfortable talking to your partner about the things that you want or things that you're missing in the bedroom. And then hopefully your partner, like they should, can meet you halfway, can compromise with you, can discuss with you, you know, what their likes and what their needs are. And then you can kind of go from there. And I think too, even before we get to the sex part, people talk about it. You know what I mean? Like when you're in a relationship, you kind of, depending on how far you are, you might talk about it, you might bring it up in conversation, it might become, you know, so you can kind of gauge, hey, is this person going to be sexually compatible with me? You know, are we going to be able to work this thing out? So I think if you communicate with your partner and kind of go from there first.
Dante, what's your take on it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Communication is so key because if the sex is bad, then you should be at a point in your relationship where you're able to communicate freely. Say, look, I didn't like when you did this, or I didn't like that. Because if you abstain from the sex until you get married, you're able to gauge the person on the emotional level, on the spiritual level, maybe not on the physical level yet. So since you haven't really touched that person physically, you don't really know what they like, what they don't like. So that's where the emotional relationship comes into play. So you're able to talk with them and relate to them. And then just, you know, the communication will birth a better sex life.
But what if they're terrible even after all the communication? No, like honestly, this is an honest conversation.
Right.
Like what if, you know, you're
Or even
absolutely...
if it's like a physicality thing.
Yeah.
What if, because you haven't seen this person naked, what if she has an overgrown clitoris? What if he is not the size that she may have desired?
So what do you do from there? Because my thing about this is...
No shade to overgrown clitoris.
or less than down. But I think what I'm thinking about with the whole situation is they did it for a spiritual reason. And I totally respect it. I get it. I understand it. I get the good and the beauty that can come from it, to taking your time to get to know somebody. Because I think a lot of times now we really don't take that time. You know, people meet, and I'm not knocking anybody for, you know, anything that they do. I respect sexual fluidity. I respect it. But a lot of times, sometimes people meet now, and it's more of the physical, and people don't take time to get to know each other. And most of us are probably guilty of this at some point or another. I mean, we all went to college. We have those college, you know, so we know most of us either have stories or know stories from someone else. But what if you try everything and this person is just terrible, and you want to be physical, and you want to be able to, you know, make love to your partner, or not even just terrible in bed, but they're unwilling to try things. Like they were so, you know, before, yeah, baby, you know, I agree, you know, yeah. But then you get married, and then it's, you know what? I don't really think I want to do that anymore. Where does that leave you? How does one work that out? And you being a sex therapist, what if the man or the woman say, well, let's go see a sex therapist, and they're like, nah, I don't want to talk about it. Which a lot of people still have, you know, people won't even go to therapy for other things. So imagine going into therapy for the bedroom.
I have an opinion about it.
Yes.
I think that sometimes, if people want to wait, then that's their prerogative.
Absolutely.
And I support that. I think that when you do get married and then you do discover that there's just no sexual compatibility and we've exhausted everything and there's just this block, that I don't, in my opinion, feel as if it's healthy to just ignore it and say, I'm just gonna ride it out, you know, he or she is great in all other aspects, and I'm just, you know, weighing out the pros and cons so I can just be able to just deal with it. I don't think that that's healthy. I think
agree.
that repressing it can come out of the gardener come over one day.
That's how affairs happen. You know, working too late with your coworker.
You just got all this, you know, tension built up, and it causes a side effect. And that's my opinion. I think
agree.
that sex is just as important and emotionally compatible.
I agree.
So to your question, sexuality is its own communication. You know what I mean? Like physical touch from the actual act of, you know, the penetration, it's its own communication. And so if you have a partner, just like with anything, just like if you guys are talking in an argument, and if your partner is not willing to meet you there and is not willing to do what it needs to take to kind of work things out, then yeah, you are at an impasse. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, you have to look at your partner. It makes, man or woman, it'll make them feel like, okay, well, does this person even want to be with me because they're not trying to communicate with me, they're not trying to meet me halfway. And so then, yeah, you are at an impasse. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, do I even still want to do this? Because then you got other issues. Because if that person's not willing to kind of meet you where you're at, that's a problem, you know, within itself. That and to Casey's point, it does start to spill over in other aspects of areas of your life. You might argue about the shoes being in the hallway, they weren't supposed to be there. You might start, you know, trying to get away from home more and try to avoid the person. You know, things like that. So if that person is not willing to meet you halfway, then you do need to sit down and be like, okay, what is going on here? Because I love you, you love me, I want to make this work. You know, we have this life together. You know, but you're not willing to meet me halfway, and I have a problem with that. So you really need to sit down and address that issue. Like, why aren't you willing to meet me halfway? Why aren't you willing to compromise with me? Why aren't you willing to try new things with me? So.
Jose, you got anything to say about that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I want to definitely agree with Casey's point, because it's a healthy relationship. And if the sex part of the relationship isn't functioning, or it's bad and y'all tried everything, then it can get to a point where the relationship is not healthy. And it just takes time, because you have to rely on other things in your relationship to get past that point, because the sex will get better if you...
Will it though? Will it?
If, like my sister was saying, if people, communicate and really want to try to get better, I do believe that the sex can get better. I believe that the marriage will get better. It just takes a little time. And if the relationship is not healthy because of sex, like she was saying, it could spew into other areas of the relationship. But I think that if you just give it some time, and to continue to work with one another, then, it can get better.
So let me ask you this, from a religious standpoint.
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, I'm married to my husband, and we waited until we got married, and we had sex, and it just didn't click. And we tried for a year, and it got to the point where I was like, I just can't do it. I want a divorce. Do you think, from a religious standpoint, that that's not valid, or I'm not being true to my spiritual self for choosing to divorce based off of incompatibility for sex?
Right. That's a great question. That's not a valid reason though. If you go to the Bible says that you cannot divorce your wife unless there was infidelity, unless one partner committed adultery. That's the only means from separating from your partner.
Wait. The Bible says that?
The Bible says that.
So the only thing is adultery is the only guidelines for divorcing.
The only guidelines.
So unhealthy relationships don't count.
Unhealthy relationships do not count.
Oh man, I can't get with that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I cannot
Unhealthy
get with that.
relationships do not
I'm
count.
sure God would not want me to be in an unhappy relationship.
Right, see, now we open the door to other aspects, whether it's abuse, mentally, verbally.
Yeah.
Like that is a slippery slope. Like me personally, I do not recommend a woman to be in an abusive relationship. But the Bible also says that you are not supposed to be unequally yoked. So you should know your partner before you even get married to them. Know their tendencies, know how they are. I mean, you can't really think of somebody 10 years, 20 years from now, whether they're gonna be an abuser. We don't know that. But the Bible says to not be unequally yoked. And if the person is following God like they're supposed to, then you can have some kind of indication of how their life is going to go, because those kind of things that they do aren't godly. Abuse isn't part of Christ. Neglect isn't part of Christ. So if the person is following Christ, they're going to bear fruits of Christ. And abuse and neglect, that's not Christ. So you should know your partner before you even think about marrying them and where their life is going to head.
But what about sex? You don't know sex yet. You never had sex.
The thing is,
You might be unequally yoked sexually. Mm-hmm. So, and I get it, and I'm glad you made that distinction between abuse, and I thank you for saying that. Mm-hmm. For people that are listening, we're like, well, God don't want me to get beat,
Right.
So I'm so glad you brought that up and not just leave it at, just that blanket statement. But what if you're sexually on yoked, right? Mm-hmm. Y'all know you gotta catch me up. So what if you're sexually unyoked? You don't know that till
you tried.
You did everything you were supposed to. You abstained. You got to know each other on a mental level. You went to church together. You prayed. You followed everything according to. Because some people can't help sexual shortcomings. I'm sorry. You just can't help that. So what if you get together? You are, and I don't want to use the word perfect, but for lack of a better word, let's use the word perfect. You're perfect in every other way. So the 80-20 rule, 80% you're this amazing couple, you're great together, you're yoked in every kind of way, but that 20%, you're unhappy sexually, but you didn't know that. You did not know you were unequally yoked in the bedroom, and I've heard people say, well, God wouldn't let that happen. And He wouldn't let these two perfect people, I hate the word perfect, but like I said, for lack of a better word, He wouldn't bring these beings together and make them compatible in so many ways, and then sexually they're not compatible. I've heard people say God wouldn't do that, but I also know people that have gotten together, grew up in the church since they were kids, got married, then discovered, what? Like, I'm disappointed. This is a sham.
Yeah.
You know, not the marriage was a sham, but the bedroom, you know, the bedroom activities were like non-existent. What do we do in that situation? Because I respect the wait, you know, but what do you do then?
Right, so I actually have to respectfully disagree. You know, I'm a Christian myself, I am, but I also believe in being happy. And I think that what happens is if you have this person that is not meeting your needs, you know, and we're talking about men and women, because, you know, a woman cannot meet a man's needs just like a man cannot meet a woman's needs.
Yeah.
So we're talking about both. And if that person, one is did you try everything? I always say try it. Try to the best of your ability. Give it all you got. If they're giving it all they got, you know at the end of the day, he gave all he got, you know at the end of the day, you gave all you got, then if it's still not working, I would say you would have to maybe look at what your other options are, only because, like we said earlier, it will start to spill over into other areas of relationships. So then that's when it starts becoming destructive. Like that's when maybe verbal abuse starts happening. That's maybe when neglect starts happening. That's maybe when infidelity starts seeping in. And then now you're hurting this other person, you know, and now you guys are hurting each other, you know, and then it becomes this snowball effect because you're hurting each other. And to me, if I love somebody, I'm okay with letting them go.
Yeah.
Like I'm okay with letting them go and saying, you know what? I gave it all that I had, you gave it all you had, we're just not there. And so that we can still remain some relative of friends or have some type of positive relationship after this, I'm gonna let you go because I love you. So.
Yeah. I mean, respectfully disagreeing. I mean, both of you guys have a good point. So, adults. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
I know that there's a lot of shame associated with, and I'm saying this in a general standpoint, I'm not saying this in all church settings, but in some situations, let's say a woman decides, or not even in religious, just in general as a woman, if a woman decides to leave a man based off of not being sexually compatible, then there's more shame towards her than it is towards him, because it's like, oh, you got a good man, he didn't have kids, he in the church, he got a job, you know, he's taking care of home, the sex, you know, you could have just rolled that out, like what's wrong with you? All these men out here doing all this other stuff and you got this good man at home, and there's this shame towards anyone who chooses to decide to not be in it because of that, you know, versus having an affair on that person. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, with that, it's cultural. Like, culture says, you know, you're gonna leave this guy because of lack of better sex. Then they shame
Or a
him.
woman, let's say woman.
Or a woman. You know, and it's all cultural, man, and it's.
But is there something wrong with leaving someone because of bad sex?
Well, you know where I stand, so maybe I could develop.
Well, what do you think about the shame associated? Do you think that's right?
No, it's not right at all. I mean, you should never condemn somebody for their decision, honestly, in any situation. Like, you should not pass judgment, you should not point a finger, because people are people, they're gonna make mistakes, and you should not ever judge anybody based on the choices they make. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I when I was listening to the thing with Megan Good and her husband, one of the things that she did say was that talking about how she got better roles and stuff like that because she kind of, I don't want to say denounced her sexuality, but she kind of
She didn't let it define her
right.
anymore.
She didn't let it define her anymore. In that kind of that bothers me a little bit. I take issue with that because it's almost like you're saying as a woman you can't be sexual, you can't embrace your sexuality and be the sexual being. Otherwise, I mean, we all know there's stigmas, there's all these stereotypes. You know, if I'm a sexual woman and I'm a sexual being, I'm gonna be put into a box of okay, right? I'm fast, I'm promiscuous, I'm a hoe, I'm you know whatever else.
Yeah.
And so I take issue with that because you can still be a sexual person, a sexual being. I mean, you know, it's no longer a time where, we're not living in the times now where it's like, okay, you gotta lay on your back, missionary position, gotta make these babies, and that's about it. You know, we're not living in that
Some
time
people
anymore.
still believe that.
Some people do
with
still believe
religion
it.
behind it, might I add.
Correct, you're right. But, you know, for the most part, we don't live in that era anymore. And so it does kind of bother me a little bit, when, you know, as women, we do have to like tone down, and we can't be free to speak about sex and talk about sexual things, because we get put into this box, to the point so much so that when people ask me what I do, at one point I found myself kind of just saying, well, I'm just a social worker, you know, and that's kind of it. Because the moment I would tell any guy I was dating or anything like that I aspire to be a sex therapist, automatically, oh, you're a freak. Oh, you're this sexual person.
Do they understand what a sex therapist is?
Right.
They're not having sex with their clients. They're not on the corner.
Explain to people what a sex therapist is. No, I mean, really, explain to them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them probably could use some sex therapy right now. So explain to them what a sex therapist is.
And so sex therapy is not, I mean, I think when some people hear it, they're like, okay, so that means you're going to be visiting these people in their bedroom? No.
Correct. Has everybody's mind twisted with her sex classes.
Right. No, not at all. So it's not that. What it is it's just like any other therapy, but the
And that's
issue
a
is
sex
sexual.
surrogate, isn't it?
A sex surrogate, yeah. And then they do
There's a difference between a sex surrogate and a sex therapist.
That is correct. And there's also a sex therapy practice where they believe in touching their clients, you know, touching them and getting them to use the touch and stuff like that. Right. Now, some people do that, but that's not what sex therapy is. Sex therapy is more of, you know, you're essentially counseling people if they have any sexual disorders, like if they have things like vaginismus.
What's that?
Where your vagina will not open up, it doesn't dilate normally. So if they're having like pain disorder, like they have stuff going on, men and women, they have stuff going on in their genital areas, and they're afraid to have sex because it's kind of painful to them. So you can do pain, you can work with pain, you work with people who are sexual abuse victims. You can also work with people who are the predators on the other end. You can work with couples, you can work with people who have different fetishes that maybe are kind of not so good, like diapering or, you know, things like that. So you can
Does diapering means you wear a diaper
That's
for
correct.
sexual turn on?
That's correct.
Okay.
So
I'm not judging anybody.
So
Sit my teeth. I'm not judging anybody.
So, you know, and that's what, it's a whole broad thing. And as I'm still learning, like, cause I'm still in training and I'm still learning, cause I at first kind of thought, you know, maybe 1 or 3 things you can counsel on, but there's so much. There's so much. But yeah.
It's how we got here.
It is how we got here.
But good question now. Have you, while observing, or I don't know if you've gotten to the point yet where you're actually counseling people, but have you dealt with anyone that had sexual hangups because of religion, or they felt, and I saw this on True Life once, but we don't really, you know, MTV True Life, but we don't know how true all that stuff is. But I saw it and I forgot the exact, maybe it was True Life. I watch a lot of trash TV sometimes, but where they felt, because of religion, they were really sexually repressive. So have you dealt with that or anything?
So I actually do counseling now, and of course sex comes up sometimes, so I do kind of touch on that. But I actually was in a supervision group with a lady who goes to churches and does sex therapy counseling. That's what she does. That's her background. So she's a Christian counselor. She's a Christian counselor, and she actually will go and do workshops with women, and you know, it's part of like their therapy they do before they get married, and even like after that.
That's good.
So she said it's been successful. She loves it. She loves doing it. It's, you know, it is faith-based, but she kind of gets women kind of outside of their shells a little bit and starts, you know, getting comfortable with, you know, sexuality and stuff like that. So she said it's been pretty successful, and she actually goes around to different churches and does it. So I haven't firsthand had that experience, but it's out there. I mean, there are those resources.
So, and it's weird talking about sex with my little brother. So
He ain't little.
I know, but still, it's so weird. But I love his point of view from things. He's a little bit more, you know, religious than the rest of us. So it's great hearing him coming from that point of view. But do you think the wait is necessary if you're not religious?
Oh, that's a great question. It just depends what the end goal is. Like, what do you want your marriage to be? Like, do you just want it to be based off sex? Then, why wait? Why not just start now? Start practicing now. But if you really want your relationship to, from a religious standpoint, follow God, then yes, you should definitely wait. But it just really depends what you want your marriage to be like. And there's so many things that can make the wait beneficial or necessary, because you get to know your partner on a deeper level.
Yeah.
You get to know your partner in other aspects that you might not have known if you were to have sex with them prematurely.
Do you think that's the exception or the rule?
I think that's a good question. That's a good question. I think that's the rule.
That's a rule.
That's a rule, definitely, because like Megan Good was saying on the segments, like, sex can cloud so many things because it's like a driving force that we have.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like sex.
Yeah.
Like, we're wired to have sex.
It's the reason a lot of people, the flip side, it's the reason why I've heard, and people stay in unhealthy relationship
Yes.
and have dealt with so much
Yes.
because they're like, well, it's so good. And I'm like, but then he doesn't call you for 2 weeks.
Or he's sleeping with so many other
Exactly,
people.
or she doesn't even talk to you in public, but she's hitting you up at midnight, and I forgot who used to say it. I want to say somebody's mom I know that used to say, nothing's open at 2 in the morning except some legs and Waffle House.
Yeah.
But it's so that, you're right, it does cloud judgment sometimes. So I'm sorry, go ahead, that just set off a bell in my head.
Yes, you're exactly right about that. So it's so beneficial to wait. There's so many positive things to wait. But like like you were saying earlier, you just don't know about your partner if you're not religious. So it's.
What are some of the cons of waiting, both in a religious setting and in a secular, I guess would be the word? So what's some of the cons? What do you think? What do you think some of the things, because you're looking at it from, the great things, and we always want to focus on the great things that can happen if we do this, but on the flip side, what's some of the negatives that can, or do you believe there's any negatives that can happen from waiting?
Yeah, I'll go first with this question. It's some negatives is like, what do you do with that drive? What do you do with it? So many people.
What do you do?
So,
That's a good one.
so so many people can like. So it's like, what do you do with that drive? So many people go to other things to fulfill that motivation, and that could be a con, especially if you're not rooted and grounded in a religious standpoint. Then you could go to so many different areas of life and just get lost because you're trying to fulfill a drive that only sex can do. So I can say that's a con.
That's one I had never even thought about. So yeah. What do you think, Unika?
A con of waiting, correct?
Yes.
We're saying con of waiting.
A pro and a con.
A pro and a con. So to me, the pro is, I like what Devon said. It's kind of sometimes exciting to wait because you got all this you don't know this person.
The build up.
It's a build up, and it to me it's kind of almost like a form of foreplay. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like because you can be intimate without actually having penetration.
Yeah.
You can hold hands,
Yeah.
you can cuddle, you can kiss, and you can do all this stuff. So I think that's the pro of it. You do get to, to his point, you do get to know that person, for who they are. You get to hang out with them, spend time with them, be intimate with them in ways that's not sex. The con side is a lot of people, a lot of women, let me not generalize, but I've talked to a couple of women, and they say they want to wait because they want the guy to love them and fall in love with them. And
I can't be mad at that.
yeah, but that's incorrect, because if your whole reason why you're waiting is because you want this man to fall in love with you, or you feel like that's going to make him hurry things along
Yeah.
more, you guys can take the next step more and stuff like that, then you have to ask yourself, is that all you have to offer
Yeah.
as to why that person would want to rush
Yeah.
to be with you and want to rush to marry you and want to rush for those things? So that to me is kind of the other side of it.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, you do have to ask yourself, well, why am I waiting? It's not a religious thing. If it's not from a religious standpoint.
Do you think most women wait because of the men? And if it wasn't the fact that they feel like let's just be honest, even some of the most, what would I say, not feminist, let me not say that, but even some of the most open and, help me out, Casey, what word I'm looking for? Free women, like women that are free thinkers and don't necessarily, non-conformist women. But a lot of us, our ultimate goal a lot of time is to still have that nuclear family and to still get married and, you know, to have children. So I feel like a lot of women, a lot of what we do sometimes, is based off of, you know, the end goal, which is marriage. So for, you know, a woman to say, well, I want him to fall in love with me, do you think most of us would even think about the wait if that wasn't the end goal? Because most people are abstaining because they're abstaining to what? Marriage, right?
Yeah.
So if that wasn't the end goal and they wanted to feel like they were these, you know, these good wives, because that's still valued. You know, I hear a lot of women saying about other women, oh, now y'all want to wait after you don't slutted yourself out and, you know, nobody else wants you. Now you want to calm down and now you want a good guy. I've heard that so many times. So, you know, you back women into a corner where they feel, where that becomes important because society has made it important. Although in this country you don't really pay a bride price in a lot of times. Well, depending on what your culture is, that's still something that's valued. A woman's sexuality is still, you know, valued. So
And it goes for a lot of money in
Exactly,
other countries.
exactly.
It goes for like
here too, is people still auctioning that stuff off.
Yeah.
But you know, so do you think that for most women, if the idea of if you wait and get to know yourself and you're gonna have this, you know, this marriage and this man who value you, if we take that out of the equation, what do you think would exist? You know, what happens next? Is it even a point of discussion anymore?
So I think that if it probably was taken out, like if it was like, okay, well, you don't have to wait, but you still can get your, you know, your 40 acres and a mule, you still can get your husband and your 2.5 kids and your dog. I do think that maybe women wouldn't wait as much.
Yeah.
I don't think they'd probably wait as much or as long. And we're talking about marriage, but I've even talked with women who just wait as far as just being boyfriend and girlfriend. So their goal is to like, okay, well, I'm not gonna have sex with this guy for maybe like 3 to 6 months. And then once we're like grounded in our relationship, then we can start being intimate. Or I've even had women that said, you know, that are in a relationship and that are even like engaged or like, yeah, I'm not gonna give it to him, but like maybe once a week because I don't want him to like, I want him to crave me, I want him to want me, I don't want him to just be free and give it to him. So yeah, I do think that if that was taken out, that women probably wouldn't wait as long.
Yeah.
Most women probably wouldn't wait as long for that.
Adelsa?
So repeat the question.
God, I forgot. No, I'm saying if you took that ideal out of, you know,
marriage out of the
a
equation.
marriage out of the equation and being, you know, like Unica said, you know, just being this person that he craves and he desires and, you know, and I'm doing air quotes here, this good girl, you know, like you have something to offer him. Do you think people would still wait?
No, I mean, if marriage isn't the end goal and you have so much to offer with your sexuality, why wait? Just offer what you have to offer right now so you could get the man that you desire. I mean, if marriage isn't the end goal in anything you do in terms of your sexuality, maybe, you know, getting a job or whatever it may be, if marriage isn't the end goal, then go ahead and offer everything you have to offer.
Well, To piggyback off of what you said, I brought this question up with a few men that I've spoken to. With Sierra, with Megan Good, they felt like they felt like not that they were whored out before, because I can't even say that.
But that's what they
But
meant,
that's what
though.
they meant, that they were whored out. And then when that proved to be unsuccessful for them, then they sought out the good guy that they may not have been interested in before. And then now they want to become this holier than thou, I've waited, wife, good girl material. And I feel like as a woman, you can do whatever you want, whenever, with whomever, at any time. And it doesn't mean that you can't be rewarded with a good relationship whenever it comes to you. But that perspective of, well, Sierra, she had ran through with Future, and now she wants to go with Russell and have this life. I don't like that stigma or that perspective of that.
And I hear it a lot.
A lot.
And that's what I said with Megan Good when that person was like, we know she's good in bed. How do you know that? Did you personally have sex with Megan Good? Why are we putting that, even they're like, why can't you decide that, okay, I've tried it this way? Because that's pretty much what she said.
And evolve.
Exactly. I tried to have
progress as people.
Yeah.
But men sometimes don't allow, well, let me not say men, but a lot of men sometimes don't allow women that. And I feel like a lot of men that are like that, they're bitter ass men that probably got overlooked by, beautiful women like this before. So now they feel like, oh, I got it together. Oh, I don't want you, hoe, because you wouldn't have looked at me. You got ran through by all these dudes before. Now you want to come settle down and be good. But why not? Why does somebody's past, I don't care if the past was a week ago, determine the future that you have with them? I mean, I don't get it.
I honestly think there's a fear. I think there's a fear because from the man's perspective. Now, I'm not a man, so I can't speak on that wholeheartedly, but I have spoken to some men, and one of the things about dating somebody who maybe has a checkered past or is kind of promiscuous past is there's a fear that that person is, you can't make a hoe out of a housewife. I mean, to put it simply, you can't make a hoe out of a housewife. You're not going to be able to sexually satisfy this woman. She's going to be wanting to run around and do whatever else. So I think that there's a little bit of a fear with that, the underlying fear with that. So.
Well, coming from a guy's perspective, when the guy just decides to, become a man and, grow up and handle his business, he does expect the woman to be, per se, on his level in terms of, got it together and, no longer a hoe and no longer in the streets. So when he sees somebody with a past like that, sorry to say, but, a lot of people are judgmental. So they will say, look, I don't want you. I know where you've been. I know.
But what about his past, though?
Who's past?
Well, what about the dude's past? Because I hear that, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but as you saying, sorry, but what about the dudes? Because I see it the flip way. When a dude was out there hoeing around and he settles with you, people say, girl, you should be lucky. He was a hoe before, and you got him to settle down. Versus when it's the woman, that's the flip side. Your boys ain't dapping you up, be like, you got Jada settled down. She used to be a hoe. You know what I mean? So it's always that shame. And I know it comes from, just a paternalistic culture that we live in. But why is it not, oh man, you got Unica to settle down? But the guy is rewarded because a lot of people are making a bigger deal that Megan waited and not Devin.
Devin had waited 10 years prior to meeting her.
Yeah. So why is it she is really the topic of conversation? Like what? She even said her friend said to her when she told him that. Yeah, like he's celibate. Like girl, you know he's celibate. Like not just I just started this journey a month ago, but he was celibate 10 years before they got married. But that wasn't an issue because he was seen as a prize. And even the way that she said it, she's like, I thought he was too good for me. What? You Megan Good? Have you looked at yourself lately? You know what I mean? Like I never saw her in that light. You know, I just absolutely thought she was always beautiful. But even she didn't see herself worthy enough of this man.
Yeah, I mean, when like society will put stigmas on you, society will label you, and you could allow that label to define you. But Megan Good decided, like, no, like, I am not that overly sexual person. I am not this person. I actually have something to offer. And she just changed the label she was associated with. And that's why she was able to land these different roles. That's why she was able to break records. As society just wants to label you and categorize you, and those labels have power, you know, and those labels can really like mess with your mind. Like, look, I've been in the streets, but I know that I deserve a good guy, but you know, I'm so used to sleeping around. And so society's gonna label that, and if you keep believing that label, you will keep following after that. Not thinking that you deserve better. So it's society, man.
And to your point, one of the things is that when people, I do take issue with people bashing, you know, Sierra and people like Megan Good, because at the end of the day, it probably was just a journey that they wanted to go on their own, just to get to know themselves.
Yeah.
Because we do progress as people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How we thought when we were 21 is not the same way we're going to think at 30.
Absolutely.
Hopefully. You know what I mean? That you have matured through life experiences. So they saw something in their life they didn't like. They didn't like that aspect of their life, so they said, okay, what is it that I can change? What should I do different? Let me try something different, just to try.
And it worked.
You know, and it worked. And it worked for them. Now, is that gonna always be the outcome from everybody? We don't know. Yet to be seen. I don't know. But at least they gave it a try and they got the things that they want. You know what I mean? And so, and I think as women, we do have to take, I mean, men too, you do have to take time to kind of sit down and figure out what it is that you want. You know, what is it that you're looking for in a partner? What do you want? And that does come through being alone. I know a lot of people say, well, why do you want to be alone and get to know yourself? But sometimes you do.
Yeah.
You know, you do need to be alone to get to know yourself, to get to sit down and settle down from all the noise and outside noise, and just to kind of be with self and figure out what is it that I want? What makes me happy? What are the things that I want out of life?
Yeah.
And that's what you're then going to carry over to look for in a partner. So it's
And
gonna
to know your worth.
Exactly. So you're going to look for those things in a partner. You're not going to want to settle for anything else because you're like, okay, this is the things that I want, and that's when I'm not settling for anything else.
So this is my last question on this topic. I don't know if you had some more, but it reminds me of that Me and Mary Jane episode with I always call her Mama. I can't think of her mama name. I can't think of her name.
She said, did y'all have sex?
Yes,
I mean, like,
the definition. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of us have a lot of definitions for what sex is and what abstaining from sex is, because I can even remember sometimes being in high school and really religious girls, sex for them would be like, we're not having, you know, vaginal penetration sex, but pretty much you could put it anywhere else as long as you don't put it in my
a lot of
vagina.
people think of that like now. A lot
So,
of,
exactly, because they're like, well, that's only for my husband. And
I'll
I'm
do
like,
oral, but I won't penetrate.
exactly. So what are the rules for abstaining?
So the rules to the weight. As stated earlier in this conversation, there's definitely different ways to be intimate than the penetration part. I don't know what the rules are. I would say, if we're gonna say we're abstaining from sex, I would say that means oral, anal, vaginal. That's to me.
How about cuddling?
Cuddling's not sex. So anything where there's any type of penetration, to me, is sex. You know, there's a lot of times people try to say, well, it's oral sex, it's not sex. Well, no, it's sex. It's a form of sex. It's a form of sex.
It's somebody to have oral sex with you.
Exactly. It's a form of sex. Even fingering. Like someone using fingers or using like a toy with you, or I'm using slang, you guys. So to jack somebody off. That's a form of sex to me. But if you are, kissing and cuddling and stuff like that, to me that's not sex. But that's just what I take it as, any form of penetration.
I agree with that.
Me too. So, the dude in the room.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, obviously penetration, sex, oral sex, sex, any kind of foreplay, sex. But when you talk about like holding hands and cuddling and kissing, you know, that's not really a slippery slope, but it's all personal. You know, it's between you and God and your partner. Like, what rules do y'all set? Because I know, for example, somebody that I know, they didn't kiss the whole time, and that was their own personal rule. And yeah, exactly. But them, like, they followed it, they did it. And my pastor never held his wife's hand, never kissed, never did any of that until they got married. So it's really just based on you, what you and your partner want to do, and what you decide, what God tells you to do. Because for me, I know that God told me to not have sex, so I'm not going to have sex. But I know that there's some things that can lead to sex, like sexual kissing, cuddling. That, you know, why would I cuddle with my girlfriend knowing that that's what leads to sex? Like, so for me, cuddling is out the question. Only because I know me as a man. If I'm next to my girlfriend, I'm gonna want that. So I'm not gonna cuddle her. I'm not gonna kiss her in a sexual way. Those are the rules.
What's kissing in a sexual way? You got the question.
Is that French kissing?
French kissing,
So
not
you can
open
peck,
to.
but not.
I mean, pecking's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. You know, just if you want to kiss.
I like how you're a sexual.
You know, just if you want to kiss, don't do it in the bedroom because you know what that's going to lead to.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, I applaud them. My hats are off.
I wouldn't have made it.
My hats are off to them. But to your point, I mean, I think you do have to not put, you can't put yourself in bad situations.
Yeah.
Like, so, right, like if you're coming over to watch a movie with me and we're on the couch making out and cuddling, you know, it's gonna be a little bit hard.
Yeah.
But to me though too, I think that it is important to have a little bit of touch and stuff like that. I just think you have to know yourself and what situation not to put yourself in.
Right.
You know, because holding hands walking through Piedmont Park, you know what I mean, unless you're just that person that just want to have sex in the park. You know, I don't think you're necessarily going, you know, dropping it on because you're holding hands in the park and, you know, stuff like that, giving, you know, still little kisses and stuff like that. So I just think you have to know yourself and not, like you said, not put yourself in situations, but to those, you know, your pastor and other people who haven't even had that kiss and everything, that my hats are off to them. So I have a question to ask. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I have a question to ask. How long did your pastor wait before he married his wife?
Yeah, it wasn't that long of a wait.
Oh, I know it wasn't.
Especially like just from a religious standpoint, when you follow Christ and the person that you think is to be your future wife is following Christ, it doesn't take that long to know that y'all supposed to be married. Like, why wait? You know, if you know and you know and you know, and God has confirmed it to you, there's no really reason you should wait. So my pastor, he like, you know, it's gonna be my future wife. You know, we're gonna abstain for this X amount of time and then we're gonna get married. So I don't know how long it was, but I know it wasn't that long.
I'm glad you brought up that question, Uniqua, and I lied. I have one more question. But do you think because of the wait, some people rush to get married?
Yes, definitely.
Because, I mean, like you said, you know, you're not holding hands. She coming to church all fine, you know, coming by, dropping off stuff. You see him and he's looking fine and you like, all right, so we don't get married. But do you think, so it kind of defeats the purpose of waiting to get to know the person and to go on that journey together? Because and I think it was you and y'all that, you know, we had went out for barbecue that time and y'all informed me that, you know, sex is like one of our 3 main needs or something like that, and I was like, makes sense. You know, so we were created to procreate, and through procreation, well, because not everybody. Let's just go with what they said.
But I do think I think rushing to get married, like I know that I hear people say when you know, but, and maybe this is me coming from like a therapist, like a mental health point of view, I feel like it takes time to know someone.
I agree.
And even when you're married, you still don't know someone. And they're even just living together, like, if people wait to get married and then move in with each other, then you learn all of these other things that could be very challenging, and people can just have quirks that are different. So I know that sometimes some people say when you know, and then you just get married and then you can start having sex, but there's just so many things into that it works for some.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is religiously based, and you have that faith that God wouldn't put me, you know, in that position for a lot of people, because I personally don't know anyone that's waited that it wasn't religiously like tied together. And I have questions I'll ask, you know, and people will say, well, you know, God wouldn't provide me with, you know, a bad partner. And of course I have questions about that too, but you know, I respect when people, you know, say, well, you know, I have faith enough and I believe enough that I wouldn't get paired with a bad partner. But then I look at, you know, like preachers themselves that are going through divorce, and they said, God told me to marry this person. So did God tell you to unmarry that person too? I thought you waited and you listened. So that's all, but that's my own question with, you know, with religion and things in general. But I think that's where most people are coming from, that, you know, God wouldn't put me in a situation where my marriage didn't work out. So, but I don't know. Any more questions, guys? Anything else y'all want to share on the way?
No, so I've enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's been good to hear different perspectives and to see kind of what everybody's thoughts are, so.
Any advice you guys want to give to people from a biblical, I have problems saying that word, biblical perspective, Adoze, and Unica from, you know, a clinical perspective that you do want to give to people that are thinking about the weight or are practicing the weight? So, Mr. Adoze?
Yeah, I mean, for those from a biblical standpoint who are practicing the weight, I say just pray with your partner. Pray, you know, get in the word with one another, because the Bible's powerful. Prayer is powerful, and it's one of the best tools that we have in life. You know, prayer is like a lifeline directly to God. So if you're waiting, you know, wait with God. Don't do it without God, because the whole point of waiting is for you and your partner to get closer to God and to get closer to each other. So my advice is, you know, to pray, get in the word with one another, and incorporate God.
Yeah, and from the non-biblical standpoint, I would say if you're doing it outside of, you know, spirituality, because some people do outside of spirituality, you know, just communicate with your partner, know what you want. If it's just for you to cleanse yourself and just to be one with yourself and just to take time to get to know yourself, do that. You know, it's always helpful to do that. If you feel like that needs to be a change that you make because you've been in toxic relationships or relationships that's been unsuccessful, I say go for it. And then don't be afraid to have that conversation with whomever you are dating or talking to. You know, let them know, you know, and if that person walks away from you and they're like, I don't want to do that, then maybe it wasn't for you in the first place, you know, because that person didn't want to give it time to see how it grew and to get to know you. So, you know, just, you know, have a communication, know yourself, and just be honest with yourself and your partners.
All right. So, you want to do our random questions with them? So we ask guests just like random questions. So after the heavy stuff, so our listeners can get to know you on a personal level. So one that I always throw out for anybody that's in Atlanta is, it's always Outcast or Goody Mob.
Outcast.
Okay.
Outcast,
All
definitely.
right. Well, Adoze, I kind of know the answer to this question. Were shots or drinks? Well, cocktails, shots or cocktails?
Shots.
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 Okay, what kind of shots?
So I like brown liquor.
Okay.
So like whiskey, things like that.
Woman of my heart.
Lounge or I'm sorry, go ahead.
Vodka.
Vodka? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you sure you related to us?
Right.
You sure we in the same family unit? I don't know. Go ahead, Kate.
Lounge or nightclub?
Lounge.
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 Why?
I have to sit. My feet can't be hurt, and then I can't pay $500 for the VIP section. So lounge, and it's more intimate too. To me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same reason, just the intimate moment with your friends, lounge.
Music festival or an acoustic session with the artist?
Ooh. Oh, acoustic session with an artist. I've never had that before, but I'd love to do that. That would be mine.
Music festival, definitely.
Any more questions?
That's it.
All right, so anything else you guys want to share? Where can they find y'all if y'all want to share that personal info? You could share your social media accounts, anything like that?
Well, I don't have a social media account yet. However, I am gonna be starting a women empowerment book club for
Sign
women
me up
who-
for that, girl.
Okay. I will be starting that, and it's for women who they're uncomfortable talking about sex.
Oh,
or
never
have
mind, don't
questions.
sign me up for that.
They have questions about sex or just we're gonna read some educational books on sexuality, embracing your sexuality and stuff like that. So, but I don't have one as of yet. But what I do, I will definitely send it to Casey and you, and then you guys.
And we'll post it.
Yes.
Mr. Dose?
Yeah, I sent here no social media yet, but when I do get that, I'll make sure to pass that along to these beautiful ladies, so y'all can, holler at me.
All right.
Well, shout out to Richard from RichLee Productions, who is actually videotaping us today, so we'll be able to post it later. But follow Richard at RichLee Productions.
And all social media accounts,
All
right?
social media
Instagram,
accounts.
Facebook, you tweet?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so Instagram.
If you need anything filmed, weddings, or any type of filming of any sort, please follow him and get in contact to set that up.
And our last thing before we go, I know Casey already did it. We normally have our have a seat moment for just people, situations, anything that's bothering us. So you guys have anything that you kind of want to vent? Here's your session.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to piggyback with Casey. Have a seat if you are not voting.
Have a seat if you're not voting.
Have
Because the shit doesn't make sense. It doesn't.
You
Have
can
a
clap
seat.
on the mic.
Yeah, sorry, it doesn't make
Yes.
sense.
Have a seat, because I literally have spoken to at this point 3 people who said they are not voting because they feel like it's pointless and they don't believe in the system and it just gets on my nerves.
Show me, please.
Yeah.
Send me your research, send me your data.
Y'all
Like
got
I
us
need
started,
to
Jesus.
see it. I need to see it because I'm tired of hearing all this chit chat. I want to see it. Email us at thinkloudpodcast@gmail.com and give me the proof of why you feel like it's not legit. If why you feel like voting for the lesser of the other. If why you feel like your vote doesn't count. Please send it to us.
Okay. Dose?
Yeah, I have another event, but I am voting tomorrow. I will be voting
You
tomorrow.
saved another song. For me, I am going to have to give it to passive aggressive people. It's nothing that bothers me more than passive aggressive people, and I think I see it more now on social media, especially when you know these people and you know all these memes they're posting and what they're posting about is, pretty much instead of calling the person up or shooting the person a text or something, they're doing it via social media. And I understand, your social media, that's your account, you can do whatever you want with it. It could be a personal journal for you if you want to. I get it. I used to be like that 10 years ago. I get it. But to me, when the back and forth is going on and you see it and you're like, why the hell y'all don't text each other or call each other or go write in a journal or something about it. So when people are really passive aggressive, it bothers me. Just get it done, say what's on your mind. If it's a relationship worth saving, it's worth saving. If it's not worth saving, then just kind of dead it and move on. But the back and forth, even not just on social media, just in person, if you don't mess with somebody like that, you don't mess with them. You don't have to entertain them, but and don't get me wrong, I can be queen petty sometimes. I can be really petty sometimes. But it's not worth it to me just being really, really passive aggressive. Deal with that shit, can't deal with it, move on, leave it where it is. So that's my moment. All right, so you want to tell them where they can find us besides the email you just got so passionate about?
Find us at Think Loud Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Leave us a comment, leave us a review. We're on Podomatic, Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher. If you have any suggestions for any upcoming shows, if you have any questions, please just hit us up.
All right, so that's it, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Peace.